Our next company is Netmaker Communications. Barbara, tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, we have John Marcy coming up. John Marcy founded Netmaker Communications in 2007 and now serves as the president and CEO. He began his career with the Air Force and went on to work for Contel, GTE, BBN Technologies, and Verizon before starting Netmaker Communications. He brings over 35 years of telecommunications experience and holds a degree with the University of Phoenix. He is an active member with AFCEA, IEEE, and the SIP Forum.
All right. John, on your marks, get set, go.
Okay. Well, it's not my slide. I'm not sure where the slides went. There we go. Well, we'll do without the slides.
It'll come back. We'll hold your time until we get it right.
There we go. Okay. So who are we, Sharks? First of all, thank you for your time and the opportunity to meet with you here today. We're a young company, young insofar we've been in business a little over 10 years, but we're a composite of, I'll say, old school telecom. We came from GTE, Nortel. One of the things that we have found a sweet spot in is addressing the transition from TDM telephony to IP. So one of the things that we have captured as a vulnerability is that from a cyber perspective, this is an area that nobody has actually really addressed. What are the cyber risks associated with moving SIP, Session Initiation Protocol, into your domain? So what we have found traditionally is that people that consume voice over IP, whether it's premise-based or whether it's hosted through RingCentral or whoever, best practices typically adopted is to do port forwarding through firewalls, which is the absolute worst thing that you could possibly do, because the UDP port requirements for your media can be in the thousands. So by doing port forwarding on your firewalls, what you've subsequently done is introduced a new vulnerability for distributed denial of service attacks on your firewalls. The other, I'll say, bad news is that in that context, if you are putting your entire enterprise telephony system in that domain, that environment, as a bad actor, I can saturate your firewall and bring your entire telephony system to its knees. So the question is, how do we mitigate that? Where do we take that to the next step? Because the conversations I've had with Cyber Command and what have you, they have no clue. This is a completely off-the-charts conversation with them, and they don't have the skill sets to even address it, which is very concerning, quite frankly. We have to introduce some new technologies, but we have to be also mindful that voice over IP is not just another app on your network. There are specific behaviors and vulnerabilities associated with the protocol that you're not going to fix with just firewalls, IDSs, and IPSs. Let's see if we can make this work. There we go. So this slide on the left is pretty much what you've got going today, which is your data network is running independent of your telephony network. You have your telephony network consuming services from your Verizon or from whoever your LEC is, and it's usually on a completely separate infrastructure. I noticed this facility when I came in, it's running on a TDM PBX, and everything is separate from their data network. But the FCC took testimony in August of last year from all the major telcos who testified that they're killing off TDM starting in 2020. AT&T is the first carrier that's going to start killing off PRI circuits. This is going to be a forcing factor for the federal government and for industry at large to get rid of those old TDM key systems and PBXs that, by the way, aren't made anymore. You can't get support for them anymore, to transition to IP. So as you move forward, and I'm supporting the Department of Defense in this matter right now in putting their strategic plan together for the CIO office, There's a platform called a session border controller. A lot of people don't understand the technology, but it is a stateful, similar to a firewall device, but it opens and closes pinholes dynamically based on UDP SIP session requirements. So you don't have to have your ports wide open on your firewall. The other discriminator with this technology is it will do back-to-back user agent capability, so you can inspect the media and the signaling between inner and outer. What's very important about this is that you also have the ability to monitor the rate of media going through the device. So if you know that your audio is only supposed to be running at 64 kilobits, if you see a media path coming through going at 2.5 megabits, someone has hacked you and someone has penetrated your domain. So the SBCs have a way of identifying that and flagging that as an artifact. These produce, like firewalls, several artifacts. It's another sensor that has to be accounted for within any cyber strategy.
Time up. Okay, judges? On your marks, get set, go.
Rob, we're gonna let you start. So, can you tell us? You said you're supporting several different customers across the Department of Defense. Not to unveil your secret sauce, but can you give us an idea of what that makeup of your customers is? Is it more Intel based, and if so, are they doing not just looking at ports on an individual basis, but more so like a system level or instance response? I mean, what type of utility are they using your technology for?
So the primary customer for us is the Defense Information Systems Agency, right? And the DoD CIO office specifically. We're writing the new framework, security framework for the DoD. We're incorporating this technology and the understanding that as we transition to IP completely to include the telephony aspect of this, we're going to move the legacy DSN basically onto the NIBRNet. That's no trivial task, to say the least. Sure. We've had to address several key issues in that are complex, such as multi-level precedent preemption that came with DSN. How do we replicate that in this space? But more importantly, from a cyber perspective, as this presentation is focused on, how do we protect our telephony information?
Could you clarify whether your solution is proprietary?
It is not, actually. Session border controllers as a new technology, there are several that are on the approved products list that the JITC has tested and approved, and commercially there are many that are available. So Homeland Security, Treasury, Senate, all of these individual agencies should be looking at this technology and augmenting whatever their current security posture is for the specific purposes of securing their VoIP traffic.
Interesting, I think. It looks like a mobile device manager, but for VoIP as we go forward, and I commend you for that. Can you talk about why your product is different and why we should perhaps look at networks and Netmaker, and right, make sure that you're a solution that we want to see as innovative?
So I don't necessarily endorse a single product in that space as far as session border controllers. It's really more about the framework. So most cyber professionals that I've talked to or interviewed with really don't understand the significant attributes of real-time service protocols, because it is a very different behavior than your traditional data TCP traffic. So putting a session border controller into that framework and working and managing it in concert with your firewall is the secret sauce, if you will. And there is a management overlay that we provide that allows you to manage both your firewalls and SBCs together holistically, so you get one situational awareness picture, one cop of your true cyber posture.
So can I throw out one quick question at you? So convergence and hyperconvergence has been a topic of discussion inside the networking world for the better part of the last 10 years or so. And a lot of the big players out there, Juniper, Cisco, they have large professional services arms associated with their core businesses. And certainly with Cisco being a major provider inside the US government already, and already actively marketing converged IP infrastructure, how do you think about differentiation specifically with your offering versus what Cisco and Juniper and others may offer?
Very good question. This particular space, as far as session border controller, Cisco does offer a product. It's called the Cube, but it lacks the sophistication and the ability to scale. So when I look at an agency such as the Department of Defense that has 2.9 million users, there is no single product, if you will, that can scale to meet that type of capacity. So when I'm looking at cloud-based solutions, they're really not a fit. So I have to look at the carrier providers and what's the technology that the AT&Ts and the CenturyLinks are using, because that's the right fit. And coming from GTE,
30 seconds.
that's the domain that I bring to the table.
Hey, John, I just want to get back to
Yeah.
you real quick because critical infrastructure is obviously a hot topic amongst the country, and I think your focus in this particular area can be relevant to a number of areas, not only in the Department of Defense, but in our communities every day.
Absolutely.
And so I would recommend you look at Jack Voltaic's exercise, which was in the city of Houston, and how they
familiar
looked
with
at the
that.
critical infrastructure, and I think you could advise that group. There's supposed to be a review, I think next week, on Wednesday with a couple congresspersons that are reviewing the results of Jack Voltaic. It would be interesting to see your feedback on that event.
End time. Thank you. Appreciate it.